Hi, this is Jason Nickleby, Assistant Director with the Minnesota State High School League, and this is football officiating training tape number 2. Going to be taking a look at primarily line of scrimmage mechanics in the red zone, formations, those kinds of pieces, but also free kick mechanics and some umpire mechanics as well. Thanks to all of those officials who took a look at tape number 1. We had close to 500 who have completed that so far. Remember that we need to view these tapes by October 8th if we would like to be considered for a state tournament assignment. So thanks to all of you for taking the time to do that. Hope the scrimmages went well, and good luck in your games this week. Again, when we're looking at these clips, not picking on any one official or crew or team or player, just trying to learn from these tapes. And again, you don't have to necessarily agree with everything that is stated on these tapes, just hoping that it starts a conversation with your crew about mechanics and coverage and philosophy, and hopefully we can put all those things together and be successful on Friday night. So with that, let's take a look at some plays. Okay, on this first one, I want to talk about delay of game and our philosophy and mechanics with these. So in this particular play, 6 minutes ago in the second quarter, time not really a factor. So we want to make sure that we're taking our time, deliberate on these as it relates to our mechanics. So play comes to an end, and we're going to go 1,000, 1,000, start it, back judges, and that's typically what it's going to be because you need to complete your dead ball officiating responsibilities before we start worrying about the play clock. So make sure that these are obvious fouls. When you have a visible play clock like we have in the prep bowl, like in this situation, we need to make sure that we communicate with the folks working the play clock and the game clock so they understand our expectations. We don't want any cheap delay of game fouls, so we don't want the play clock started within a millisecond of the previous play being over. Make sure the play is over, that we have a dead ball signal, and then we can move into starting the play clock. And then when it comes to whether we have a foul or not, when it hits 0, we're going to be looking at the ball, and if the ball is not snapped and we look back to the clock and it's still at 0, then we would have a foul for delay game. And the instruction for the play clock operator is to reset it to 25 or 40 if the ball is snapped and we do not have a foul for delay game. So that's the mechanics piece and working with our timers if we do have a visible clock, and then back judges, you're responsible for that if we do not have a visible play clock. And remember that we will do the 5-second count as we get down to 0 of the play clock. So those are the mechanics and those pieces that we need to work with as back judges and with our game clock operators. And then as it relates to this particular situation, just a reminder that if we have a delay game foul or a last second false start or some other foul that's going to cause the ball to become dead, we want to make sure that we get on the whistle right away and get in there real quick, have a physical presence, because what we don't want to happen is what happens here to the quarterback. He gets pushed fairly forcefully to the ground after the whistle, and if we get in there and have a physical presence and use our voice and communicate that we have a foul and the play is over, stop, under control, and then if they don't and they do something like this, then we would expect that an unnecessary roughness foul would be called. But just make sure that we get in there, shut the play down if we truly have a foul like delay game or a false start or something similar that is going to stop the clock. We need to get in there and have a presence, use our voice to make sure that something like this doesn't occur. And if it does, and we do that mechanic of getting in there, then we would like to have a foul on this play. Okay, we have a free kick here. Let's talk initial positioning. So notice the Umpire is in a good spot at the 50, a couple yards off the sideline. That's where we want you, remember. And then back judge, make sure you are also a couple yards off the line. Even in 9-player, that's where we want you. Make sure you have a good perspective. And then remember our philosophy on encroachment relative to the kicking team is if it's not an onside kick, they need to have a body part down inbounds beyond K's restraining line to have a foul for encroachment. In this particular case, the foot's in the air, so we have no foul and it's not an onside kick, so we're good there. And then the other piece on this, as you see, we have a free kick out of bounds, and we've done really well on this, and we do in this particular situation as well. Mechanically, we handle it really well. We get up to the spot or near the spot, and we have the flag, and then very efficient penalty enforcement and getting the options from the coach about what they want to do and then moving forward. So nice job there. And just a reminder on the rules, page 57, rule 619, free kick should not be kicked out of bounds between the goal lines, untouched inbounds by R. If it's kicked out of bounds and R does not accept a penalty for kick catch interference on the same kick, R has the following choices. A, accept a 5-yard penalty from the previous spot and re-kick. B, accept a 5-yard penalty from the succeeding spot. C, put the ball in play at the inbound spot 25 yards beyond the previous spot. Or D, decline the penalty and put the ball in play at the inbound spot. I don't know who would take D, but they take option B in this particular situation. And it's handled well by the crew. They mark it out of bounds at the 40, no problem. Tack on 5 yards from there, and then put it in play at the inbound spot. So handle this really well. Just remember, we can't combine pieces, so we can't give them 25 yards beyond the previous spot and then add 5 yards. It's one or the other. They have to decide what's better. So, for example, if they kicked it out of bounds at the 10, typically they're going to take the 25 yards beyond the previous spot and put it in bounds at the inbound spot. So that would be the 35-yard line. So when you hear the announcement that they're going to place at the 35, it's because it's 25 yards beyond the free kick line that we're going to put it in play, and not place it at the 35. That part's not in the rule. But overall, handled really well by the crew. Just a reminder on rules and mechanics. On this one, let's talk umpire mechanics, our initial positioning, and then how we transition throughout the play. So we're going to have a play that kind of breaks down and is going to come into the side zone nearest the umpire. So let's talk initial position. We're going to have our right foot on the left foot of the tackle, okay? That way we're on the edge of the free blocking zone, and we're going to maintain that spot. So even if the quarterback rolls out or threatens our position, we're going to back up straight so that we maintain the edge of the free blocking zone, because if they cross our face, we know that they are outside the free blocking zone, and if they can dump the ball legally, they would be good. So that's why we want to maintain that position and just back straight up, so that we have a good idea of where the free blocking zone is and whether the passer vacates the free blocking zone or not. And then the next piece is, how do we transition on a play like this one? So when it breaks down, we just need to stay put in that spot where we're at and just pivot and turn and view the action in the side zone. We don't want to roll out with the quarterback or the passer. That was kind of the typical mechanic for referees and umpires, and we don't want referees to do this either. We talked about this in a previous play with referees, that we don't want you to roll out with the passer either. We want you to just turn and pivot and officiate inside out. If we roll out with the passer like this, we're going to be looking through the passer's back, and if there's roughing the passer, targeting, etc., we're not going to have a very good look at it. So we just want to just turn, pivot, officiate inside out, get a look at blocks, but as soon as the passer is a threat to foul or be fouled, our vision needs to transition to the passer as the umpire, and we would be primarily responsible for roughing the passer, targeting, uh, fumble potential, forward pass versus fumble, those kinds of things. We'd be primarily responsible for that once they cross our face. Doesn't mean referees don't have an opinion, but umpire, you're going to be primarily responsible for this. If he was able to get out of this tackle, we would continue on and follow the passer, keep our cushion, take him. If he goes out of bounds, we're going to bring him out of the team box area, especially if it's the opponent's team box. We would make sure that we would get him out of there, and then we would use the dead ball signal like the umpire does in this particular case if he is tackled like this. So just a reminder, stay on the edge of the free blocking zone. If your position is threatened by the passer, back straight up and let him pass you, cross your face. And if that's the case, he's vacated the free blocking zone, and then we become, as the umpire, primarily responsible for ruling on roughing the passer, targeting, pass fumble, and so forth. And then nice job here, line of scrimmage, maintaining our position until a pass is imminent, and then coming back and picking up the forward progress spot. So well handled by the crew here. Just umpire, try to stay put a little bit more, turn, pivot, officiate inside out, and then close on the action when he is tackled with the dead ball signal. So nicely done here by the umpire. Just a couple reminders on our pre-snap positioning and our mechanics throughout the play. On this one, I want to talk about scrimmage kick mechanics, but I also want to talk about formations and how we work with teams on these pieces. So we're in scrimmage kick formation. Remember, referees, umpires about 3 yards behind the kicker off the edge of the free blocking zone. That way, when the kicker steps forward, there will be that depth and we can still see players on our side of the ball. And then back judge does a nice job here of shading towards the chain side and moving to get an angle and can assist with forward progress when it's this short of a return, but otherwise we're going to release it to the line of scrimmage officials and have them take it. I think the only thing I'd mention, back judges, is if you can maybe get a little bit further to the side or just stay put and officiate from where you are. Just don't want to get you caught up in the wash if they return it right at you. But overall, really good initial positioning and mechanics throughout this play by the crew on scrimmage kicks. So just talk about those things as a crew, make sure on the same page. And then the other thing, back judges too, is just make sure that the ball doesn't bounce over your head and end up going towards the goal line and we're not there. As it relates to formations, take a look here. You'll see that when they get lined up, the tackles are close to intersecting that line through the waist of the snapper. And if there's a little bit of daylight there, what we want to do is give them a formation warning, and do this earlier in the game. And you'll go up to the head coach, tell them, hey, this is your formation warning for your punt team. And if we have other formation issues, we're going to have a formation foul. If it's totally egregious, so the left tackle, for example, is 3 yards behind the ball, that's not a formation warning. That's an illegal formation. That's a foul that we would want to call. But when it's kind of tight like this, where it's close, give them a formation warning and then work with the umpire and referee to get them moved up and so forth. And they can get a formation warning for the offense, for the punt team, for the extra point team. They can get one formation warning each. And again, this is for not egregious ones that are close, 50-50. We'll give them a formation warning, and if they do it again, it would be a foul. Do this early in the game, communicate it with the head coach, make sure you document when you gave them the warning, and then if we end up having a foul later, at least they've been told. And again, egregious formations that are not even close to legal, those are fouls, those are not warnings. But do our best to work with them. Tell the umpire and referee to talk to the tackles, especially to move up or move back or whatever you need them to do. And then as it relates to formations with receivers, try to make the formation legal when you can and put them where you need to make it legal if possible. So if you know that they need to be off the line to make it legal, or to make a tight end legal, and they're close enough, make it legal, communicate with them. If there's a blade of grass, any part of daylight that can make them off or on, put them where they need to be to make the formation legal when possible. If not, if it's totally off, egregious, not a legal formation, those need to be called as a legal formation foul. So we'll have a couple more examples of what we would be looking for as it relates to formation warnings. This one is 50-50, it's really tight, so we would go with a formation warning in this particular example. Okay, another example that we want to talk about formation warnings and working with teams on formation. So we have a typical formation, split end, wide receiver slot at the top, and then a split down at the bottom. And those players all look good where they need to be, the receivers. The piece that we're looking for here is how the linemen line up. And it's hard to tell 100% with this camera angle, but it appears to me that the tackles, in particular, the right tackle is pretty far back. The left guard or right guard is okay, but the right tackle is pretty far back. Again, this angle, hard to tell, but it appears that the snapper's waist is right at the 30-yard line, and it's pretty close to whether the right tackle's head is there or not. So this would be one that we would give them their offensive team formation warning, work with the players to get them moved up, talk to the head coach, make sure that they know that they have a warning, document when it was. We just don't want the first time we call formation fouls on something like this to happen at the end of the fourth quarter. We want this to be communicated with the team in advance. And again, if it's an egregious formation that's not legal, where the right tackle is 3 yards behind the ball, that is an illegal formation foul right now, not a formation warning. But in this particular case, pretty tight. Give them a formation warning, get them moved up, get them fixed, work with them, and then we'll move forward with the game from there. Here's another example as it relates to formation warnings and working with teams to get them legal. So a little bit more of a bunch formation here, so everyone's in tight. And so we want to make sure that we work with tackles, get them moved up. Guards, in this particular case, is the issue. So notice that the left tackle and even the tight end are lined up right next to each other at the exact same distance. Behind the ball, they're good. Right guard, right tackle, right tight end, all in perfect position to be linemen. But let's take a look at the left guard and the left guard's positioning. It's close to whether he's intersecting that line. Probably one we can give a formation warning to and then get him moved up. And then if it happens again, we would have an illegal formation. But if you take a look at the left guard, he's further back than everybody else, and look what he does. He pulls. And so it's an advantage to this player if he's allowed to line up like that, that he's going to be able to get into that pulling technique and get over to the other side of the ball and lead block on this play. And we want to make sure that they are properly lined up so we don't give the offense an advantage over the defense. So I think this one is close. It's tight. Probably one we can give a formation warning to. And then if the player were to do that again, we would have an illegal formation foul. But make sure we review the formation rules and what they can and can't do and where they need to be, what makes a player a lineman versus a back, where those players can be. But ultimately, we want to make as many formations legal as we can within reason, within the rules. If they are 50-50, right on the cusp, give them a formation warning. If it's an obvious illegal formation, we need to call those and call those throughout the game. But hopefully, through a warning system on ones that are close, we can get them fixed, and then we won't have issues with formations the rest of the game. But want to make sure that we get this left guard moved up so they don't have that advantage of getting into their pulling technique and lead blocking without being in a proper formation. Okay, let's talk red zone mechanics on this one. You'll see that we are at the 12-yard line, and looking at the formation, again, we've talked about that several times on this tape so far. Just make sure we get them to where they need to be, and if we can give them a warning, let's do that. Hard to tell from this angle, but it looks like the left side of the line may potentially be back too far. So work with them on that. Give them a warning in non-egregious situations. And then remember, line of scrimmage, when it's at the 12 like this, we'll probably move to the 10 and then hang out until the pass is imminent. And we have no pass here, so we're just going to keep on moving forward to the goal line and rule on forward progress at that point. And then back judges, remember that we are going to be 20 yards beyond the line of scrimmage on all plays except for plays that start inside the 15-yard line. Any play that starts inside the 15, we are going to be at the end line. So on this particular play, it's at the 12. We should be at the end line on this play. And so the official that's responsible for ruling on forward progress is going to be the line of scrimmage in this case. So just make sure inside the 15, we are at the end line. If it's a play that's outside the 15 and you're 20 yards deep and you happen to be 4 yards deep into the end zone, no problem. And then if you're able to adjust to the goal line to rule on the goal line without getting run over, that's fine. Otherwise, just stay back, keep a cushion, keep space in front of you, and you can officiate blocks and not worry about forward progress, and we'll hand that off to the line of scrimmage people. But just a reminder, 20 yards, back judges, 20 yards from the ball on all plays except for snaps inside the 15. We're going to go to the end line. On this last play, we have quite a number of factors to think about: mechanics, positioning, coverage. Just a really interesting play with a lot of factors. So we have a rollout pass into the end zone. Third down, going to be probably an obvious passing situation. So just being prepared for that as the crew, mechanically and just football IQ wise, that likely to have a pass on this play, which we do. So let's start with the umpire and their mechanics. So remember, right foot on the left foot of the tackle. If the quarterback passer threatens you, you need to back straight up and maintain that free blocking zone perspective and then turn and officiate inside out. I believe we do that, as you see here in the replay. And we're going to be primarily responsible for roughing the passer and targeting and so forth as it relates to number 9, the passer in this case. So pretty well done here by the umpire, backing straight up, pivot, turn and officiate inside out. Remember, line of scrimmage on a play inside the 5, we are going right to the goal line, and we want to work as deep as we can to get a real wide angle perspective. And that means on the chain side, remember, we want the chains, if possible, to be 3-4 yards deep inside the 20 so that you have room to work if you have chains that are up. So remember to move them back if possible. And then another factor, line of scrimmage, stay on the goal line and rule on this play. Don't come off of the goal line. because when we're moving like this, let's say he actually gets control of this and has a toe tapper at the sideline, our perspective is going to be really warped, and not where we need to be, because we're moving off of the pylon and moving off the goal line. Let's just turn and pivot from a stationary position and officiate catch, no catch, from the sideline perspective, and make sure that we don't vacate the goal line. The only way we want to vacate the goal line is if the end line or the back half of the end zone is threatened. Then we would come off the goal line to officiate that kind of a pass play. But one that's at the sideline like this in the middle of the end zone, just stay at the goal line, turn and pivot, and officiate catch, no catch, and so forth. And then the other piece, you'll notice that the receiver that doesn't receive the ball, but that's right in front of the line judge, gets contacted and ends up going out of bounds and contacting the pylon. So remember, our philosophy on that is if there's contact with that receiver and he goes out of bounds, we are going to say that the receiver is out of bounds due to contact. Do not use the phrase forced out, because forced out is not in the rule. We're going to say out of bounds due to contact. If this player would have touched the pass before having a body part inbounds, contacting inbounds, it would be an incomplete pass. Remember, that's the rules change for this year. If they are out of bounds and don't gain inbound status and touch a loose ball, that ball now becomes out of bounds. And if it's a pass, like it is in this case, if number 11 were to touch it first without reestablishing inbounds, it would be an incomplete pass. Again, out of bounds due to contact. We are not going to have a foul for legal participation, but we could have an incomplete pass if they do not reestablish themselves inbounds with a body part down inbounds. If they go out of bounds on their own and they come back into the field of play, we would have a legal participation in that case. And then the other thing, catch, no catch, we've talked about process of the catch and what that looks like. Control, body part down inbounds, and then maintain control throughout the process of the catch if we're going to the ground. Doesn't even come close to that happening here, but just a reminder on what the catch process is. So a lot going on this play: mechanics, coverage, positioning. Make sure we talk about goal line mechanics, philosophy, and so forth with our crew, so we're all on the same page, and we want to make sure that we're in the right position to handle these plays, and the goal line is where we want to be stationary if possible. Okay, that will do it for training tape number 2. Heavy focus on line of scrimmage mechanics in this one, but as we move into the first week of games, all of our mechanics, positioning, philosophy, rules knowledge, all those pieces need to get pulled together. Make sure we're having a really solid pregame this week as it's our first game. Make sure we're on the same page as it relates to communication between crew members and communication with coaches and players. That's going to be really important as we move into this year. Be really great dead ball officials, great at communicating. Work with the coaches and players as best you can to try to get them answers to their questions, and then let's just play football. So really looking forward to the first week of games. Good luck, stay healthy and safe, have a great time, and looking forward to connecting with you next week.